Welcome, everybody. I'm calling to order the 141st meeting of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission, once again at the Convention Center at 10:30 on December 18th. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Commissioner McHugh.
Mr. Chairman, the minutes of the December 4 meeting are in the Commissioner's packet. I move that they be approved with the usual reservation of the power to correct typographical and mechanical errors.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it unanimously. Item number 3, Administration Executive Director Day.
Thank you, Chairman Crosby. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
The actual administrative update here is the little announcement. We want to make sure that the public is aware of our address is changing, and so effective Monday, December 22nd, the Massachusetts Gaming Commission will be located at 101 Federal Street, 23rd floor, Boston, Massachusetts. I want to make just a little note here that we'll have a period just from about 4 p.m. on Friday the 19th that will be disconnected from the telephone service. And but if people have issues or questions or want to contact the commission, they should do so at 617-979-8400, beginning during regular business hours Monday, December 22nd, or at MGC comments state.ma.us. That's a long way for me to say we're moving. We're really not going to be in much shape to answer your call until Monday morning.
Right. Is it the same zip code?
Yeah, the zip code is 02110.
Oh, it's a different one. Okay.
Different. That will be a major milestone, by the way.
Well,
From here, we are set up here this morning to talk about the Central Management System, the RFR, often called the Set of Central Management System, CMS. So we've been a lot of our acronyms kind of get carried away here sometimes, and we're not always sure which one of those we're on. Today, I want to just take a minute just to step back, because we've had a staff team that's been first assigned to explore how a state central management or automated system would monitor the projected 10,000 slot machines from Massachusetts for tax and regulatory purposes. Our team initially proposed several concepts, and some of the licensees in the process weighed in on the topic. As a result of those initial discussions, the Commission authorized a process of issuing a request for responses intended to produce really a leading proposer that would appear before the Commission to provide more detail around cost, business case, and the regulatory benefits, and even more importantly, be in a position to answer questions based on their actual experience. And I use the phrase leading proposer because it was clear in the Commission's RFR that the Commission has not made a decision to award a contract in this case. Our procurement team has since identified GTEC as the leading proposal, and GTEC is joining Derek Lennon and the team to present to the Commission today. With that, Derek, would you introduce the team and GTEC representatives and present to the Commission?
Thank you, Director Day. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning.
Today I'm joined at my left by Matt Cedar from GTEC and Jackie Mancini from GTEC. And over the course of the time period of January 2014 through September 2014, our teams of John Glenn, our CIO, Kathy Bach, our Deputy Director of Licensing, Bruce Tan, the Deputy Director of the Investigation Enforcement Bureau responsible for gaming agents, Vanessa Orso, financial investigator within the EIB, and I visited 5 different gaming jurisdictions. And I have to say that for a large portion of it was just me, Kathy, and John. Our travels were well documented throughout the course of meetings in the past year. What we found, and then we were lucky to have Bruce and Vanessa join us to look at this from a financial investigation standpoint, as well as from Bruce's standpoint, what he's done manually for 30 years and how this could assist his team going forward. The jurisdictions we visited were Ohio. We visited both the lottery and their Casino Control Commission. We visited Maine, we visited Rhode Island, and we visited Delaware. And we saw 3 different systems operating there. We saw one from Interlock, one from GTEC, and one from Scientific Games.
in Delaware?
No, in all the different,
all the
all
way,
the
okay.
different jurisdictions. We reported to you our findings on July 24th, the public meeting, at which point, as Rick explained, we were authorized by you to go out and do an RFR, come back with a vendor to help explain the return on investment, explain the difference between a non-central management environment and then a central management environment. And at which point, we started our RFR process. It took us a while to draft it. It was a rather lengthy RFR. We put vendors who had to respond to a very tight time frame. Luckily, we had two people on our team, Joanne Shea and Agnes Collier, to help us draft that. And on October 24th, the RFR was posted, and we gave the respondents until November 17th, which is a very tight timeline. We had 5 different vendors respond. 2 of them withdrew their responses due to the time frames and not being able to prepare response the way they would like to. And we had 2 finalists come back for a presentation to us and the best and final offer on December 3rd. On December 5th, the RFR team met and we selected GTEC as the best respondent to come in front of you. Now, part of the main piece of the RFR was cost proposal.
Excuse me,
Yep.
Derek, the monitor isn't up here. I assume the feed is,
We are, yes.
the feed is okay? Can you get the monitor?
It's always something with technology, Mr. Chairman.
You can go ahead, Derek.
Okay. So as you can see on the bottom of this slide, the main piece that drove our procurement was cost, because that's what came back from the commission. How can we make this affordable? How can we justify the cost of the system? As well as return on investment. So even if the system's high, what are we getting back in the Massachusetts economy from this? So I'm going to turn it over now to GTEC to do a quick overview of their corporate structure, of their system, of what they put in the proposal on some of the return on investments, what you get from a central management system that we couldn't explain. And then we'll take it over later to go through the return on investment and the analysis we did from the response from GTEC.
Just one.
There we go.
I'll let you keep that one. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Matt Cedor. I'm Regional Vice President of U.S. Operations for GTEC Corporation. Let me start by saying first, on behalf of the entire company, we appreciate the opportunity to come here today and present to you. We also appreciate the opportunity to potentially supply this system to the state of Massachusetts. The process so far has been, in my opinion, a very well-run process. Dealing with the staff has been great, a very professional organization, and we appreciate the ability to go through the process and be invited here today. If I can start with just a little bit on GTEC. GTEC is a world-leading commercial operator and provider of technologies to the gaming industry. The gaming industry is rather a broad term. It certainly covers the casino industry that we're familiar with. We also provide technology to the lottery industry, including the Massachusetts Lottery, and we provide technology to the online gaming industry through regulated markets, mostly internationally. There are some markets in the United States that have started up within the past couple of years, specifically Illinois and Georgia. We provide these services with a commitment to the highest level of integrity, security, and responsibility. A little bit about GTEC itself. In our last full fiscal year, our fiscal years are based on calendar years. In our last full fiscal year, we had just over 3 billion euro in revenue, about 8,600 employees worldwide, and we offer products and services in over 100 countries throughout the world. And please, if you have any questions during any part of the presentation, don't hesitate to ask. This map is a representation of the jurisdictions in North America that require electronic gaming devices be connected to a regulator's central management system. So this map includes those jurisdictions such as Pennsylvania, Kansas, Rhode Island, Maryland, that have casinos connected to a regulator system. They also include jurisdictions such as the state of Oregon. That includes what we call a distributed gaming environment, which means they have electronic gaming devices in bars or taverns, age-controlled locations that have the same type of games on them that you would find in a casino. They're just distributed usually throughout the state. Oregon, as an example, has about 2,000 to 2,500 locations throughout the state where they have up to 6 machines in each location. So this map is a representation of every jurisdiction that has a requirement for gaming devices be connected to a regulator system. The next map provides you a picture of those jurisdictions where GTEC provides that system today. And you can see it's a good portion of Canada, Oregon, Louisiana, and jurisdictions similar to what Massachusetts is contemplating putting into practice, such as Kansas, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Rhode Island.
What is the color coding represented? Those labels, I didn't understand those labels fully.
Sorry,
That's all right.
starting from the bottom, the yellow is any jurisdiction that requires a central management system, and in this case, they have other vendors' systems are supplied in those jurisdictions, so non-GTEC.
Okay. The yellow is other vendors. Okay.
The orange or red, depending on the representation on your screen,
Right.
is a jurisdiction that is similar to what Massachusetts is considering. So it's a operator-run casino with a regulator system that each electronic gaming device in the casinos are tied to independently.
Okay.
And then the green,
And GTEC provides those two.
GTEC provides the orange system, yeah, so the orange colored states.
Okay.
And then the green are also GTEC provided. And some of those jurisdictions are strictly the distributed type environment, as I explained in Oregon. Some of them, like most of the Canadian jurisdictions, are a mix where they have both casino and distributed environments tied into the same system. And one in particular, Rhode Island, is a similar model to what Massachusetts is considering, but the responsibility of the system in Rhode Island is far greater than it is, that it would be in Massachusetts and than it is in places like Maryland and Pennsylvania. And what I mean by that is the system in Rhode Island is responsible for all cash management in the state. It's responsible for all vouchers that are produced from the gaming devices and validation of those vouchers. In other jurisdictions, what Massachusetts is considering, and Pennsylvania, Kansas, and Maryland as examples, the regulator system monitors the financial and security transactions on the machines, but the casinos themselves still handle the cash management, the sweeping of all the machines, the counting of the physical cash, and the payment to the players in the form of generating vouchers from the machines and then validating those vouchers. So Rhode Island is just a little bit different.
And is that what full gaming system means? A system that will do all of those things?
Yes, and in those jurisdictions that are shaded green, the system
Right.
provides those full
All that
services.
stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Just so I understand the terminology, you were referring to, I forget the term, but what's the distinction between casinos and lotteries? I'm thinking specifically on Ohio, where the video lottery terminals have the system, but the casinos do not. Is that correct?
That is correct in the case of Ohio, and the system itself serves both markets. It's really dependent on the jurisdiction and how they set up the regulation of those particular machines. For example, in Rhode Island, it's the Rhode Island Lottery that oversees the casino operations in the state. In Pennsylvania, it's a combination of the Department of Revenue and the Gaming Commission. In Maryland, it's the Maryland Lottery, and when they introduced casinos, they made the Lottery and Gaming Commission.
Right.
So it really depends on, the system itself is the same. It really depends on who the regulatory agency is in a particular state. I'm not sure specifically why Ohio chose to split out the VLT operations from their casino operations, but that's a path they chose.
There's two regulators.
No, I know that, but so you're not making a distinction between a video lottery terminal and a slot machine.
There is
From a
no-
from a CMS perspective, there's no difference.
There is no difference from a system perspective, and in actuality, from a player perspective, there's no difference. A video lottery terminal is the same electronic gaming device in a casino as it would be in the distributed market. The only difference between different types of machines would be if you had a mechanical machine versus a machine with a monitor on it. But from a system and player perspective, there's no difference between the devices.
Can I ask a question about how long have you been doing this?
We installed our first system in Rhode Island back in 1992. And we've been continually developing on that system and installing it in other jurisdictions. This map is a representation of North America. We have systems installed in other parts of the world as well. But we've been actively developing and supporting these systems since 1992.
Okay.
The next slide is just a representative slide of the major slot machine manufacturers that exist in the industry today. We work with all of them. There are a number of smaller manufacturers that we also work with, and the takeaway from this slide is any slot machine or electronic gaming device manufacturer is able to connect to our central system as long as they can implement the industry standard protocols that exist today, namely the SAS protocol or the G2S protocol. So there's no restriction on what vendor or which vendor is able to connect to our system. It's anyone that implements the protocol, and we don't own the protocol. It's a public protocol that's available to anybody. Focusing on the economic benefit and return on investment of this system, potentially to Massachusetts. This was part of the RFR that was obviously very important to Massachusetts. It was very important to us, and we wanted to take the opportunity to call out that there are some benefits that are difficult to capture, difficult to quantify from a financial standpoint. And I think that any gaming jurisdiction depends on the fact that the reputation and integrity of the regulatory body really provides the backbone for the gaming in that particular jurisdiction. And we feel that a system such as the intelligent central monitoring system provides the capability to strengthen that security and integrity of the gaming program in the state of Massachusetts through things like regulating the machines, reporting on the financials, detecting any potential illegal activity that occurs on the machine as it's happening. An example of that will be money laundering, which we'll get into on the next slide. The ability to automatically invoice casinos at a daily rate or really at any time interval that Massachusetts feels is advantageous. In addition to any illegal activity which might be going on the machine, any tampering of the devices, any potential tampering of the devices, they would be immediately shut down and not playable, and reported out as such to gaming agents to investigate what's going on. And the ability to license machines, manufacturers, operators, and manage those licenses through the system. Set expiration dates on those licenses, immediately revoke those licenses for whatever reason if you so choose. All capabilities at your fingertips with the ability to research any situation or make an immediate decision to take action and have that action happen immediately.
Well, can I ask a question about this? Let's take one, if you can speak to one of your jurisdictions or all of them. How often do any of these things happen? Has a jurisdiction had to, has it been tampered with and there's an automatic shutdown? Has that occurred, and if so, how frequently?
I can't respond to the frequency of it happening. I can give you specific examples of how often they happen.
Just to clarify on that, Matt's not trying to be obstinate. He couldn't give that to us either because it's proprietary information from other jurisdictions that weren't necessarily willing to share that with us. So what we took were some estimates from what Bruce has seen in his 30 years of doing it manually, which we'll go through on the slides, I think on slide 14 or 15, but I'll let Matt talk to the generality of it.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah, just to elaborate on that a bit, our system is provided to regulators, and we provide the service of the system to the regulators. We don't have access to the information that's generated by the system. That information belongs to the regulators, and things like security events and how often they happen, our system monitors and records those, but all of that information belongs to the regulators. So we don't see a report, as an example, of somebody tampered with a machine 5 times last week. We don't have any reason to see that report. What we need to know is our system is detecting that activity and reporting it out appropriately. So I'm not, as Derek said, I'm not avoiding the specific answer to your question. Mm-hmm. The regulators don't share that specific data with us. I can give you examples of what has happened through conversations with other regulators, but not specific numbers of how often those things happen.
So you could give me conversations, is that what you're saying, as to the kinds of things that have happened?
Specifically, I've had discussions with regulators, typically it's security individuals or members of the security team who are just looking for clarification about certain aspects of the system, such as, this is what happened today, this is how it was reported out to us, this is how it was investigated. It looks like everything worked right. Do you have an opinion? Should you guys be doing anything differently? That type of stuff. So part of our process of working with our customers, we meet with them all the time to talk about the things they're experiencing with our system and if they feel there should be any improvements or if they feel that everything's meeting their needs. So the conversations happen in that context.
Derek, wouldn't people tell you if you asked them? Wouldn't the agency tell another agency?
Not necessarily. There've been some other things that we've asked for that haven't been held back.
So you've tried to ask agencies what
we
the.
have tried to ask, and we asked GTEC to ask for us too, and it didn't come back. No, there was one jurisdiction that gave us some of, but it wasn't one of GTEC's vendors. So we can't really bring that information here based on a response that we got that we're not selecting. So if you want to talk about that after we choose to do the procurement or not do the procurement. If you want to join the PMT, we can give you that information, but it's not public right now because we haven't selected a vendor, and under public records law, we really can't disclose that. It'd be pretty unfair to bring that information forward on a bid that wasn't chosen. So we do have one area where a jurisdiction agreed to share that, but the majority of the jurisdictions did not want to share it.
Interesting.
What I can say,
I'm sorry to be almost obstinate on that, and it's just the rules and it's how
So-
it's fair for Karen.
Is it fair to say that, it's as if you provide the alarm system, but you don't know how many fires occur from time to time? You cannot tell us, the regulators do, but
exactly.
But what you've seen are some of the articles that Bruce sent around, and what the system does is detect those. So it detect when your theoretical hold isn't playing out accurately. It detect when you have too many jackpots hit versus what the theoretical play would be. So you can go and investigate, was this right, was this wrong? You can bring the machine down. You can actually set it up so it brings it down on those occurrences.
No, I believe that the capability is there. It would just be nice to know how often it occurs,
But
because
you
if
can
it
see
doesn't
from-
occur very often,
Well, you can see from the articles that Bruce is sending around regularly of how often it occurs. I mean, he's sending out articles almost,
but that
2 or 3 a
doesn't, that
week.
doesn't give you, that gives you one instance somewhere in the world. That does not give you an idea of how often this occurs. Okay.
well, we have it based on Bruce's experience in the past on another slide. So you'll get a lot of these moves, you'll get a lot of these ups, you'll get a lot of these revocations. Once again, we came back and reported to you before that there were, in one jurisdiction, I think 1,600 revocations in a year. And some of them were as severe as you need to pull that software off the floor immediately, and other ones were you have a 30-day time limit. Knowing where all those, where those pieces of software are on the floor, knowing it in real time, and making sure that you actually stick with the Independent Gaming Lab's advice to pull it off in 30 days versus let it sit on the floor. This does automatically because it's checking each device that's tied into the system and making sure that it comes down within that time limit. And that's what Matt was talking about, being able to set license expiration dates, being able to set software expiration dates. So that's one instance where there were 1,800 in 1 year. We have those types of statistics from another jurisdiction, we just can't include them in here. So I guess we could talk to you offline about
Offline,
that.
yeah.
We just can't present it in public, it's not public information yet.
Matt, if I understood you right, you said you could provide some anonymous examples or just experience examples, right?
Yes, that is
We
true.
just wouldn't know necessarily frequency, but I think that at least a limited amount of that information would be helpful.
Sure. Let me start with software security on the gaming devices. Our system monitors all access to the gaming devices. If somebody opens the main door, there are many reasons to open the main door, whether it's just a routine swapping of the cash box or checking the printer or whatever. But anytime that door is open, our system will log the fact that the door was open. Same thing with the logic door, which is where the specific game software and operating system of the device is housed. And our system will do a software check before the machine comes up and playable. The machine is unplayable when those doors are opened. Before the machine is playable for a patron, our machine will check to make sure that that software on the machine is exactly what is expected to be on that machine, and that nothing's been changed while the door was open. And if it's not able to be, the software is different for some reason, the machine will stay disabled. It won't be able to be played, and a notification will be sent to the regulator, whatever the appropriate staff is at the regulator to investigate that anomaly situation. These checks can also be set up to occur on specific time intervals. Most jurisdictions where we operate have decided to do it at least once per day, knowing that at least once a day the software on the machine is going to be checked and validated, and the machine will allow it to remain playable. And if any event happens in between the course of the day and the next check the following day, such as a door open or a power off or anything like that, that check will happen again before the machine is playable again, to ensure that nothing has been tampered with. I would say that from a software tampering standpoint, I can't recall any conversations where a regulator has found that somebody had attempted to change the software on a machine for two reasons. One is the system will immediately detect it and there won't be any advantage gained because the machine will not be playable. And the second is, I think there are advancements in the technology of the machines themselves, which help thwart people from trying to do those things. Situations such as money laundering, I think that they happen fairly commonly. I can tell you a specific instance of a jurisdiction where, and perhaps we can just jump to the next slide so we can run through the process of money laundering detection. Specific instances where an individual or a group of individuals went up to a machine and put money in the machine, and their activity on the machine was run through some proprietary algorithms that detected that they're not actually playing the machine. They're putting money in and they're cashing out. And then they're either taking those cash out slips and recycling them through machines a few more times, or just going right away and validating that cash out voucher and taking the cash from the machine. When that play is happening in real time, or that activity is happening in real time on the system is looking at all the activity. It doesn't know who the player is necessarily. Our system doesn't. But it looks at the behavior of the player at the device and raises a warning if the activity falls into certain categories or seems to be suspicious. And that alarm is in real time. The security staff is notified immediately, and typically what happens is the regulator's gaming agent or security team would work with the casino, who's in control of the camera security system at a facility, to look at exactly what is going on or what went on over the previous few minutes, to identify the individual, watch their activity, and then handle the situation appropriately from that standpoint.
Do an operator's play management system, their own, whatever you call the system,
Slots management system.
slots management system, does that have a similar capacity?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. I don't have experience with the casino management systems themselves.
One of the things that comes around in these articles that Bruce sends around is the seemingly increasingly ubiquitous devices that you can use to alter the payout on slot machines. I think the last one you sent around showed us where we could get some on the web if we wanted them. Will this software pick that up?
Yes, it will. Again, the part of the software that's defined on a machine, the record of that software that we keep on our system includes the expected payout of that machine. So if that machine is behaving erratically, obviously keeping in mind that things like jackpots do exist. So
right.
For a short period of time, a payout of a machine could seem extremely high if a jackpot has been hit. But if the behavior of a machine seems to be erratic, then that is another mechanism that we have in place where that will be reported out to a gaming agent or appropriate staff for the regulator to investigate and report on. So yes.
But the trigger for the report is a outside of the profile payout, not the fact that there is some external intervention that these little gizmos will do.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer your question on the casino system. They would not notify you with the money laundering event.
They don't have the same capacity.
They don't have the ability, or they wouldn't notify you?
It's not set up to do that, and it's not set up to notify you as well.
I think that's
I had-
more in the player management system. But you have to remember that we're getting the benefit of where GTEC is an operator. So they are an operator's house system in Rhode Island and parts of Canada, as well as they are an oversight system. So they have both functionality built into their software.
So how does the system, I'm following up on question the chairman is asking. How does the central management system interface with a slots management system, an operator's system?
Again, it depends on whatever the jurisdictional rules are. In some jurisdictions where we've provided a system, they are kept specifically independent. In some jurisdictions, they utilize an offline method of balancing between the two systems. And in some jurisdictions, there's the ability for the two systems to pass information back and forth to each other. But in terms of if you as a regulator want to do something to the gaming floor, whether it's shut down a machine or a group of machines, that would not go through the slot management system. You would have a direct connection to each gaming device, and you would have the ability to shut off that gaming device, as an example, for whatever reason you needed to shut it off. It wouldn't be reliant on the casino management system to allow you to do that.
In order for this system to work, does the machine have to have certain kinds of receptors in it, or I'm not sure exactly what the right word is, but for example, some kind of a device that shows you when the door is opened and is connected to the system? It has to have that, right?
No, well, machines do have sensors that trigger an event when the door opens.
Yeah.
It's not something unique to this system or any of our competitor systems. And that communication method is the SAS protocol or the G2S protocol.
Okay.
The SAS protocol is the same protocol used by the majority of the casino management systems. So it's not an additional layer of responsibility or requirement on the slot manufacturers or on the operators to have the slot manufacturers do something. It utilizes the same work that's been done for that facility based on the implementation of the protocol.
Okay,
And
and
John-
that's true for all the inputs to this system?
Yes.
It just takes advantage of things that are there anyway?
Correct.
Okay.
And John, can you remind us of the protocol? We already have in regs the G2S
We do.
protocol, and
Right, so-
there was a phasing, if I remember correctly.
So the legacy protocol is the slot accounting system, SAS protocol. We're
SAS.
allowing Penn to put machines in Plainbridge that have that protocol, and we'll grandfather those. They can leave them in, but when the commercial's open, we're requiring that the machines that are put in there have the G2S protocol.
G2S.
It's a richer set of data. It's a standard which has been under adoption since the Gaming Standards Association started in 2006. So
Right.
I think it's going to be more adopted, and I think that's what we put. So does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, but for the purposes of this discussion, it's a non-issue because the system can manage both.
Well, the only difference is that the cost using the G2S system, because of advances in technology, won't require an intermediate device called a System Management Interface Board, which is basically a piece of hardware that costs about $300. It has to go with each machine in order to distribute the data to the two systems, right? You're basically bifurcating the data coming out of the back of the slot machine. We're going to take it. The house system takes it as well. So in the old machines, there's an additional piece of hardware. It's an additional cost. We built it into the model.
Right.
In the G2S, it's one stream of data, and we both take a feed.
Do we pay for that piece of hardware, or does the operator?
It's part of the cost of the installation of the infrastructure that's been put into the proposal from GTEC.
So the way we built the contract,
so-
we pay for it.
Well,
We
yeah,
pay
okay,
for-
sorry,
We pay
thank
for it,
you.
But at the end of the day, it's all distributed back to the operators.
Oh, everything is?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the difference, so
Right.
we could either have them pay for it directly or have it through the contract.
Right.
We figured we'd rather own the contract, not have debates about what's needed, what's not needed, so we
Right.
built it into our
Right,
contract
right.
price.
Right, okay.
But for the case of Penn, they would have to make a decision, go with the older protocol and eventually pay the additional hardware, or...
So
go
they've
with the
already
new-
given us an inventory of 300 SAS-based machines that they're going to put in there. So we'll put, the SMIBs in, and we've also I had a conversation with the team building yesterday, went to their construction meeting. They're wiring, not anticipation, but for the contingency that the commission decides to use a central management system. So I think all of the pieces are in place to be able to do this if we decide to.
Yeah, well, I remember that directive.
All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Didn't realize that there was all this on that slide, did you?
We're going to be here until Saturday, obviously.
I'm happy to stay for as long as you'd like me to. Some other benefits of the system, and some of these we've touched on already, the ability to directly manage and control the gaming devices from your system without the need to go through a secondary system. If you find an issue with a specific machine, whether it's the game on that machine or if there's an issue with a specific manufacturer in the entire jurisdiction, you can immediately take action and it can result in immediate action across the entire jurisdiction. And you're actively monitoring all of these gaming devices in real time. You have system-wide reporting, whether it's by jurisdiction, by venue, by manufacturer. As I mentioned before, daily invoicing of the facilities, you could do that at any time interval you're interested in. And then the ability to record and act on in real time any security events that occur at a gaming device. And then the ability to provide audit reports so that you can go back and audit that what the facility has is the same as what you have on your system as well. And I think the bottom of the slide there, we've already discussed most of those benefits. And the next slide touches on licensing, which again, I won't go into much more. We've already discussed it, the ability to provide and manage licenses for whether it's a venue, a manufacturer, a game, a machine itself, or a user on the system. Actually, we hadn't touched on users. If you have a user on the system that has access to reporting or the ability to monitor activity on the gaming devices, those users are typically licensed. If for some reason that user is no longer part of the regulatory agency, that license can be revoked, which would immediately shut down user access. And if they were to gain access to the system, they wouldn't be able to do anything. They wouldn't have access to any of the data any longer on that system. This is just a very high-level overview of what the implementation of the system would look like. In this case, there'd be a primary data center located in Boston. We'd have two systems located in that data center, a primary and a backup. We provide a duplex environment in the event that something happens to the primary system. It immediately will fail over to the backup system with no required intervention and no discernible change of service to the venue or the player. And again, this is the same type of system that we have operating in multiple jurisdictions throughout North America and the world. We would use a communication between the primary data center and the venues or through an IP network, typically through dedicated lines. We have site controllers. In this case, you can see it's called the MTSC. I'll apologize now for acronyms. We use them quite a bit ourselves. MTSC stands for Multi-Terminal Site Controller. And you normally have a number of MTSCs in any venue which have direct connections to each individual gaming device on the venue floor. And then you can see we also depict a secondary link from each gaming device to whoever the provider of the venue system would be. In addition to the primary data center in Boston, we also anticipate a backup data center in Springfield, which would have a third system which acts as a secondary backup so that in the event that the entire primary data center disappeared, the backup data center could take over without interruption of service to the venues or to the players. Again, the same type of environment that we've provided to other jurisdictions operational today, and it provides an extra layer of redundancy in case there's any catastrophic event at the primary data center. There's no loss of service. I'd mentioned before that we provided our first system in this environment in 1992. And for over 22 years now, because the development of that system began prior to 1992, we've been actively developing and providing these systems to jurisdictions throughout the world. We've invested millions of dollars over that time frame. GTEC's R&D budget last year alone was $107 million for all of its product lines. But we've invested millions of dollars over the years and have had hundreds of engineers working thousands of hours to develop the system. And we feel we really have a best-of-breed system that we're able to provide to regulators who are interested in implementing it.
In this diagram, what is DGM and ABI?
Those are optional add-on systems that some regulators choose to take advantage of. DGM stands for Dynamic Game Management, and it would provide you with the ability to download new games to the gaming devices from the system. Today, if you had to swap out a game, you would install the box of the gaming device on the floor, and that box has a lifespan. Let's say it's 3 years. It's probably more than that, but let's say it's 3 years. The game on that device has a significantly shorter lifespan. So typically, you would get a new game for that device after 6 months or so. You'd keep the physical device, you'd put new gaming software on it. And you'd have to walk up to the device and open the door and load the new software on it. That particular server there provides the ability to download new software to the machine from the system, so you don't have to visit every machine that you wanted to change software on.
But that's the operator's responsibility, right? Is that
Correct.
something you use more in Canada, where you are the operator?
Yes, in a situation like Massachusetts, that's not something that you would probably be interested in. And other jurisdictions similar to Massachusetts, such as Pennsylvania and Maryland, they don't use it today. So it really depends on what the responsibilities of the regulator are, and if it extends out to the management of the software on the machines. Additionally, the ABI reporting, Advanced Business Intelligence, provides an extra suite of reports that are usually focused on performance type information for those operators who are interested in looking at the performance of specific vendors or machines or games to allow them to make better purchasing decisions about enhancing their gaming floor. So again, not necessarily something that you would be interested in this regulatory environment with the scope of what you're considering this system to do.
There are a series of reports that are part of this presentation. Are the reports built into the system, or can they be configured by us? In other words, if we got into this for a year and we said we'd really like to get a report on X, can we create that report?
Yes, we have a baseline set of reports, and the reports that you have in front of you are some examples
Right.
from that baseline set of reports that come with the system.
Right.
But yeah, we have the ability to, if there was a new report that you wanted to see or some other type of functionality that you wanted reported out in a different way,
Right.
you would have the ability to add reports.
Part of our RFRs, we requested access to the back-end data, so if we wanted to develop ad hoc reports or queries, we could do that. I know Enrique, that was important to you. So that was part of the discussion during the RFR. It was checked off as a yes, that's available in our system.
Right.
I think in addition, Derek, we're also asking for a three-way match in a report for our jurisdiction.
A what?
Correct. So that would be another, we saw one jurisdiction where they're taking the reads from the operator's system. So the operators have to send in their meter reads, and they line it up next to the meter reads from an independent CMS system to see where there may be changes, where there may be a glitch in the program, where there may be an adjustment that you wouldn't catch up front. And what we're also going to do with Bruce's input is when there's a actual cash drop and review and sweep of the machines, tie that out to what happened, what the meter reads were. So we want to do a three-way match to see what's the money saying, what's the ticket in, ticket out saying, what are the meters saying, and where are the discrepancies, where is the environment maybe not perfect.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll take over a little bit now based on the information that was presented to us on the return on investment. Now, I know that a lot of this is at a high level, so I'll try to walk through some of the rationale and the mathematics behind how we arrived at these numbers. We've done different developments of this slide, and thanks to Vanessa, we put this kind of in an area that's digestible and doesn't go on for about 50 pages. So on the return on investment side, the first piece that we're looking at is just a very high level. Where is the biggest place you can lose revenues? Biggest place we can lose revenues is when you have to shut down machines for a good amount of time. Where's the instances where that will happen? The biggest place is when you're doing machine moves, or when you actually have to go out and audit the software that's sitting on the machine. Now, based on Bruce's experience, some of the experience we've seen in other environments, you have to shut those machines down for anywhere from, and you shut down a whole section for anywhere from half a day to a full day. So if you're looking at some of the analysis we've done, and some of the information we've gotten back from our consultants, you get about $300 to $350 per machine. Now, we're not saying every machine will do that, but when you average them out, $300 to $350 per machine per day. So if we go in the middle and we take a look at 325, and we're estimating in a non-central management environment, a manual environment, we look at 10,000 machines, we would audit about 3,000, and you figure about 1/3 of those machines will be moved or changed throughout the course of the year. There's another 3,333. There's 6,000 machines that you'd lose anywhere from half a day to a day of revenue. Now we said, well, that's a high number. We'd be looking at probably close to $1.6 million a year. Well, let's back that down and say that 70% of those machines wouldn't be operating throughout the course of the year. We'll take about a 30% to 33% variance. And we got down to a reasonable number of you're losing $360,000 in gaming revenue per year in a 10,000 machine environment just by having those machines shut down for half a day while you wait for our staff to come out with the team, where if the facility does it, they can do it much quicker and have the machines up and running the second they do the move or the second they change the software. It pings against the CMS machine and says, is it a CMS vendor? And says, is it up and running the right way? It's back live and back in a playable condition.
Now, that was very fast, by the way.
No, but it was comprehensive.
But, that assumes that there's a lot of machines, more than 10,000, and we're going to have...
Assuming there's 10,000.
Okay.
Assuming that you're going
But assume that there's 1,250 or 3,000, because we're going to be, this is casino based, right? You have to run your operations per licensee. The downtime can be spread. If you have to do an audit, how often did you say?
We're saying you're going to do about 1/3 of the CPU units throughout the course of the year.
1/3 of the CPU units once.
Once. So you've got 10,000
Right.
machines.
No, start 3,000 machines.
Okay, but
Right.
we're looking at steady state. We can revise this. and
No,
look
no.
at-
But this is operator-based. This
But
is,
you've got
this is
three
not
operators.
10,000.
You've got 3 operators, so 3,000 machines apiece, and then a slots parlor at $12.50.
Right, but don't spread 10,000 over a year. Spread 3,000 times 3 over a year.
So now you're saying don't audit 1/3 of the floor, you're saying audit closer to 10%?
Well,
No.
let him finish. I don't know where you're going either, but go ahead and finish
Well,
what you're going to try to get at.
When you spread 10,000 over a year, it's as if you had one casino with 10,000 machines. And I'm saying we have 3 casinos with 3,000 each.
So what's the impact of that?
You're still going to audit 1/3. anyway.
The calculation you're getting at is that you're gonna spread the downtime over a less. There's less reason to spread the downtime.
No, you're still looking at auditing 1/3 of the floor, right? So you're auditing 1,000 in one facility, 1,000 in another, and 400 or so on the 333 in the other,
Right.
whatever you want to add it out to. So you're still doing 3,333 machines. It'll be down for half a day to a full day.
You're talking about total machine
Yeah,
days is
total
what you,
machines.
total machine days.
Yeah, total
Right.
machine days.
Yeah, but then you can use nights. You can use the
Absolutely, and that's why we've deflated that factor to say, we're not gonna, this number would have been much higher the first time we went through it. It was about 1.6 million. And we've deflated it way down to say that the operators are gonna do their best to make sure that they time those to not impact revenue. But we figured there's still some impact to revenue, so we've gone with, cut it from a day to down to half a day, which is the least amount of time you could do, which, believe me, our team wanted to go higher to get the numbers higher, but we want to give you the bare minimum impact here. And then we said, let's not go with 100% of these machines are going to be getting $325. Let's go with 30% of them would be getting that. That's saying 70% of them are getting nothing. We're counting.
In other
that
words,
they're doing-
70% of the audits cost not a
Yeah.
penny. Yeah. So 30% would cost something, right? Okay.
So we've tried to deflate, we've tried to make this a realistic number based on, everyone's best intention.
I'm sorry.
Is the 360 GGR or tax
Gross
revenue?
gaming revenue.
So tax revenue would be
Would be
80,000.
Yeah, 1/4 of that, but it's revenue that's coming back to the facilities.
Okay.
So it's both revenue to us and it's revenue that's
Right.
going back to the operators.
And just, I want to clarify that it's not just the audit, it's also when the operator decides that they want to move their floor around and reconfigure, there's a manual process, which Bruce could talk to, that is enhanced by the ability to check the machine in the new location much quicker than would have to be done in a
Well,
manual
because when
process.
they move a machine, we have to go back out in
Yes.
the manual system and check it.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But don't they do those things? I guess that was part of my point. Don't they do those operations when there's very few people?
They try to, but it doesn't always work out that way. For one, it's the availability of the regulators, at least in other jurisdictions, might only be day shift regulators to go and check those machines. So they end up losing revenue during that course of that time.
Okay.
So, on the other side, and we'll get into this, on the next slide, and I'll let Bruce take over an explanation of each one of these instances. And believe me, this is not all inclusive. We've just taken some of the bigger instances to make a demonstration. But in a manual auditing environment, you have to worry about, your employee availability, which Bruce was just talking about, the experience of your employees, whether they know how to use the house system or not, whether they can analyze the data coming out of the house system, as well as the availability of information. Do you have all the prompts that we talked about earlier? Do you know each time an event is happening? And in an ideal world, yes, you're getting that, but there are always times where things fall down a little bit, so you don't necessarily have that all the time without the independent system.
So there's a staffing component to buying this system, a GTEC staff
There's a
component?
GTEC staffing component to it.
So is there an annual operating cost in addition to the capital cost?
The way we generated the procurement, we wanted that all inclusive in the monthly bill to us. So their costs came in with a refresh at 5 years, so to make sure we had updated equipment and make sure we have updated technology, the latest system it's running, at $26.1, $26.3 million. And that was very low compared to the other.
Okay, but-
And on the monthly, it's about $225,000, which includes the capital.
And the staffing model, and the cost of the staff, the FTEs.
So the,
The answer to the question was yes.
Yes.
yeah,
That
but the
would
20,
have done that job.
no, but I looked at that number, and I thought that was simply the capital cost. That,
No, the 22.5 is the staffing too. So
over a 10-year period.
Over a 10-year period.
Okay.
Which I said, we got a very competitive price here compared to the other ones that came in.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out what that competitive price included.
There's no hidden.
No, I'm sure there isn't. I just didn't understand what, I do now. I understand what it includes now.
So sorry, Derek, I just wanted to add, in terms of the FTEs, we've also built in the option for the commission to take over the operational responsibility of the application at some point. I think we'll, if we end up engaging with GTEC, they've provided that capability at some point in the contract, based on our ability to support it, to staff up with our own FTEs and operate. And so it's something to consider, it's something we've built in, and it may make the cost in out years less.
So this next slide takes a look at each type of thing that could happen on the gaming floor. What you would have to, the time you'd have to spend doing it in a manual environment, and the amount of time a gaming agent would have to spend on it with the CMS system. And I'll let Bruce walk through the categories on the left, and the instances, the number of times we do it is based on his 30 years of experience and what he would do in a manual environment, how he would recommend setting up his shop to do it. And then we can go through the numbers and the variance and how we arrive at what the savings, just in these operations. And I don't want this to either think that there's all the savings that you get from a central management system. This is just some of the high-level ones to point out exactly what you get.
Okay, just to go over kind of what each of these category functions are. With jackpots, we would verify that the chip is correct, check to make sure that the seal is still intact, and make sure that there hasn't been any other tampering, evidence of tampering on the machine. We would also look at the history of, from a computer printout as to what's happened in the machine, the meal log to see what kind of repair work prior to paying jackpots. With new installations, it's verifying that the slot machine chip in the computer is the correct one, an approved chip, and you do that by using a laptop and matching that up. Checking machine serial numbers to make sure that they're recorded correctly. Then we would seal the verified chip in the machine. For moves and changes to the games, it's just kind of the same thing, verifying that the new locations are right. Also verifying that the chips and sealing any new chips or program upgrades in the machine. We'd also want to do an audit of the physical locations to make sure that they actually have the number of machines on the floor that they're telling us and that we're taxing them on. That kind of involves kind of going through matching the serial numbers and so on to a printout. Revocations, this is a pretty common practice, and you've seen from some of the reports that I've sent you, they find glitches in these slot programs that over time kind of compound themselves as they add more software to it. So what they would do is, if it's something as serious as some of the ones that we've seen in the articles, we would turn that off right away and they would upgrade it with a new chip. We would verify that again, reseal, just like you did when we started. With the audit of the CPU units, manually we would try and do a third of the floor a year. It's labor intensive to do this, and it's just more or less verifying the chips and the numbers to make sure that, yeah, that is still the correct chip in that machine. A third of the floor is, I don't know, being very hopeful that we can reach that many. It's a tough thing to do. Meter reads versus actual counts is pretty much where you take the meter readings and a count sheet to see what you're counting in the count room basically matches up with what the machine meters say you should have, looking for variances, following up, kind of investigating with the slot department and accounting as to why there is such a variance. Formal complaints of the hold, and it's really more formal complaints on slots altogether. It kind of means looking at the history, see what has happened through the play cycle. If it does involve the hold, it's kind of looking to see what the machine is set at and what it's currently holding. For the financial investigator on site, that would be in the manual setup. We'd have to have somebody come out and actually do specific audits on the flow of the paperwork and jackpots and so on to make sure that everything had been done correctly. With facility balances on wide area progressives, that's more or less matching up to make sure that the machines are progressing correctly, the money's being accounted for from all properties involved in that wide area progressive, and that usually it's like a 5% of that machine would go into the jackpot to make sure those kind of things are set up correctly.
Can I ask a question?
For the two typos on this page.
That's all right.
Versus in the area.
That's all right.
Can I ask a question about jackpots? So you're calculating here that there would be downtime every time there's a jackpot, right? And that costs money because otherwise the person would be playing more?
Yes. It wouldn't necessarily be every time that you do it, but there would be occasions that would happen.
But doesn't a jackpot result sometimes in that person playing more?
Yes, it
By
does
itself?
down the road, but if it's a jackpot over a certain dollar amount, there's
No.
paperwork that has to be filled out
Yep.
and so on. It's not an automatically paid
Right,
out.
right. No, but every time, if I brought $100 with me to spend,
Yes.
and I hit a jackpot, whatever, I may be putting it back again, right?
In theory, that's what they're hoping, yes.
Right. But if you only are counting the amount of downtime of the jackpots, that doesn't.
But that revenue is gonna come in one way or another. What we're talking about is the machine is up and running for this much quicker. So what you're saying is in the non-central management environment, they're gonna put that money back in the machine. In the central management environment, they're gonna put that money back in the machine. We're not disagreeing with you on that. It doesn't impact gross gaming revenue. What we're taking a look at is it takes half an hour to verify that and have a gaming agent and have that machine down and not being played when you do that in a manual environment. And it takes 10 minutes to do that when you have the reports that you can hit really quickly off the central management system. You go out there, you're not waiting for the operator to provide those reports, and you don't have to take the time to understand them, review them, you're comfortable with the data, and you can say, yes, this is accurate, we should pay this out. That's the difference.
Could you explain what the last, what the annual savings, 10-year hourly savings, 10-year contract savings, and the gross gaming revenues at the bottom are?
So the difference between the 10-year savings, that's just staff time. So we took the cost of a.
Is this, are we talking about the 10-year hourly savings now?
Yes, so the 10-year hourly savings, so we'll take the hours manually versus the hours of CMS. You take the difference there, then you multiply that by the number of instances that this would happen. And then you multiply by the hourly rate of.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble following you now. Let me rephrase the question. That number, 74,000, 755.53 at the bottom of the 10-year hourly savings, is the number of hours that are going to be saved over a 10-year period?
Correct.
Okay. And then you multiply that by the hourly rate to get the 10-year contract savings?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Times the 4267.
Okay. And how do you, and then where does the 101,000 at the bottom come from? Where's that come from?
So the 101,000 was when we took the daily gaming win of 325 per machine, divided by 24 hours to get an hourly rate and multiply it times those hours for the course of the year.
But I thought it was 360,000. What was the 360 that we saw earlier?
The 360 is overall if you're down for a half a day. This is just taking those bare minimum hours that it's down. So we're saying at the very least, you're gonna get 101,000.
Oh,
Okay.
And so that's the very bare minimum you'll get from having the system up longer. And it kind of puts in perspective what we're saying of the 360,000, that it's not that high if you're assuming it's down for half a day.
Right, okay.
So we keep trying, and I know these are confusing, but we're trying to give you the places that we're poking holes in our own argument.
So the 101,000 is keyed off of the 74,000 plus hours.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The 7,400, so that turned into $1 million over the course of 10 years.
I see, yeah, the 7,400 annual
Yeah.
savings, okay. Hour savings, yeah, got it.
Does that relate to less personnel?
So that's the area where we'd be looking to the IEB and the commission to talk about, do we want less personnel, or do we want more work into the internal controls? Do we want to do more work on the gaming table side of operations? Do we want to spend more time doing research versus just manual processes of, and I think there's a balance there. I'm not going to speak for the IEB. I think Bruce and Karen would be better to have that discussion with you, but there's definitely opportunity to take a combination of the two or to cut back on staffing. They're absolutely, I mean.
Because it doesn't really relate to a savings if you don't have fewer
Correct.
personnel.
Correct. You're right about that. So you can either, and we'll get into, once again, this isn't the whole world of what happens. The next slide kind of shows you a big difference, and we'll walk through that. But this is showing you just on these activities, the number of hours you can save by having basically a computer check this work for you.
But can I understand? So in places like New Jersey or when there's a jackpot, and I'm still on line 1 here on the jackpot, and the seal isn't broken because it's all manual.
It would be inspected, and it's over, in our regulations as well, if it's a jackpot over 75,000, a gaming agent would inspect that machine to make sure the seal is intact. There might be, reasons or something that you would actually want to break that seal and check
Right.
the machine.
But if the seal is intact, why does it take half an hour?
Just the process to get everybody there that's involved, and getting the chip out.
No, but you're not taking it out.
No,
Or do
but
you? Or do
have
you?
to take the board out to check the chip, and it does take time to do that. It's not instantaneous that you just go over and yank it out. You have to have the slot department with you, security. So the process.
But isn't the seal out visible from the outside?
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Then on this next slide, a lot of this information is the same as you saw on the July 24th presentation as far as the number of staff that would be needed in a manual environment versus in a central management environment. The one area that we have a change is in the gaming agents. And Bruce
Yes.
has had an opportunity to take a look at what we had presented the first time and give us a critique as to what he thinks the gaming agent staffing should be. And I think he has a pretty good explanation as to
Yes.
why it would increase and the details behind it. But just as a quick reminder on the finance side, as far as auditors go, we'd recommend 2 auditors per shift, and on the morning shift, 5 days a week per facility to help pick out the areas where you're seeing discrepancies in meter reads versus cash counts, and kick over to the IEB for instances to investigate. Without that, we'd have 1 auditor in the central office reviewing the reports, the exception reports, because we'd work with GTEC to develop a protocol that would say, here are the ones you want to look at. And we'd only be managing by exception versus looking at every single one.
So you've assumed 4 facilities, if it's 2 per facility, right?
Correct. And that was the same assumption we went on the first time, so we tried to keep our information on cost. Obviously, if we only have 3, that drops down by 2 positions.
Okay.
And as well as the EBDs that we're monitoring drops down. You don't have 10,000 estimated, you'd be closer to the 7,000 estimation.
And for our staffing, with the central monitoring system, we would try and have 2 24-hour, 7-day-a-week coverage. To do this in the non-central monitoring system and to meet the needs of our customers to be able to try and keep these machines, we have 6 teams, and I would want to add 1 extra person to each one of those teams that would pretty much be designated to do seals and things like that to help the SLOT department keep the department operating.
6 teams, help me with that. Now, you have two agents all the time at a facility.
Yes.
Is that right? And we have 4 facilities, so you have 8 agents on duty at all times.
Yes.
And how do you get from the 8 to 64?
It's the number of teams that would operate on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week,
So you have
which would
3
be 6.
shifts.
So we would add an extra person to each of those shifts, because of course they don't work 7 days a week.
Right.
You know,
Okay, got it.
In a prior slide, you had assumed that sometimes you have to do the audits, you have to wait for the 8-hour shift to do the audit?
yes.
But here you're assuming there's somebody always on tap.
I'm trying to accommodate the industry to keep this operating, and it was our sister agency that actually did that audit, and I don't think just having people available at one part of the day is really meeting the casino's needs to try and keep things operating.
Right, but wasn't there a prior sort of saving, assuming, didn't a prior saving calculation assume that you would have to wait for that auditor?
It
to
wasn't
be,
the total thing, it was the length of time that it would be down. I mean, there's a lot of factors whenever you do the machines. Union electricians are often involved. You know, the property might not want to pay the overtime to bring them in prior to whatever their normal starting time is. There are a lot of factors that play into that, not just our availability to do it.
Fair enough.
So now we have a 2.7 and change payroll savings. That's where we come out, if you follow this chart, right?
Correct, and once again, that 2.7 increase came from the majority of.
Right, no, I understand that. But this system, if I understand your $220,000 a month figure,
Correct.
costs $2.6 million annually.
Correct.
So the net savings
Just on
is,
staff.
pardon me, is one
Just on
point,
Would be about
is
100,000.
about $100,000.
If you're looking at it over the course of the 10 years, yeah, so when you fully staffed up.
Actually, not over the course of the year. This is a question I had. If you're looking at year 5, when you have, or year 7, when you have 10,000 machines and four operations,
So we'd be hoping year 3, based on the construction schedules.
right, well, yes. However, between year 1 and 3, you have only 1,250 machines.
No, I understand. I'm ramping up, right? So you don't have this kind of a savings
From year
from
1.
year 1 to year 3.
Yes.
But after we're in a steady state, you have this much payroll savings, but the cost is, what?
Basically the same.
2.6. And so you've got $100,000 savings, then you have a loss for the first 3 years.
Right, and I was hoping to, I know there's that calculation available, it's not represented here, but I would like to understand over the course of a contract, 10 years appears to be what we asked for in the RFR, just how that ROI really comes to fruition.
That'll be our next slide.
Yeah.
And even if you want to take the full savings off, with the 2.7 million for the first 2 years, and drop it by 5.4, I think you'll see. go to the next slide. So what this takes a look at is where we start off, the cost, and this is over 10 years, and we assume steady state over 10 years. So you're right, Enrique, there are some deficiencies in here. But we start off with a total cost of $26.3 million for the contract, and that includes a $3 million refresh at year 5, where they refresh all of the equipment and refresh the software that we're working on. Then the next piece is a reinvestment. So part of our question to the vendors was, how much of this are you going to put back into the Massachusetts economy, either through sub-vendors or through hiring in Massachusetts? And GTEC has committed to recycle 60% of the contract value back into the Massachusetts economy, and that's about $15.8 million. The next piece
Wow.
was a tax benefit that the Massachusetts will get, and that's comprised of payroll taxes from having Massachusetts residents working for GTEC and paying taxes, as well as corporate taxes for doing business in Mass, and I think there was some supplier taxes in there as well.
Yeah, sales and use tax.
Sales and use tax. So that's about $1 million over the course of the life of the contract. Cost savings is the next piece, which we just went through, the $2.7 million per year, which brings up $27.7 million over the 10-year period. And then the revenue enhancements are the $360,000 that we put down on the slide per year for having the machines up at a quicker time period, which turns into $3.6 million over the course of the 10-year contract. So not only have we shown on a return on investment, and you can poke holes at it however you want, but what the Massachusetts economy is benefiting, it turns into a $21.8 million benefit to Massachusetts by using this. Now, Enrique, if you want to pull the 2.7 off for the first 2 years, that's $5.4 million. You're still looking at a $16.4 million benefit to the Massachusetts economy by going this route. If you want to take some of the 360 off, you're talking about another $1 million. You're still talking about a $14 million benefit to the Massachusetts economy on this system.
I'm not sure I would include the reinvestment either, because if we compare these with, let's say, having gaming agents on the floor, all of their salaries would be reinvested back in the economy, one would assume, because they live close to or in Massachusetts.
So we're just looking at the return on investment of this system. We didn't compare it to...
Well, and that's the calculation that I'd like to understand better, the return on investment with this system and without it, comparing those two calculations.
But you've got a cost on that side, too, of an additional $2.7 million per year.
That's right.
And you're only taking the tax on that of 5%, the payroll taxes. We're not committing to the vendors. We're not doing the vendor buy that GTEC is offering to do.
How much is this figure, the reinvestment figure?
The reinvestment,
Yep.
it's $15.8 million. It's 60% of the $26.3 million contract value.
I think that's
So
a wash.
I don't happen to think this is really relevant, but just for the sake of discussion, you're saying that the $2.7 million that if we don't have the CMS would go into payroll is dramatically less valuable to the economy of Massachusetts than the 60% of the
No.
CMS payment?
No, I'm just saying that it's a cost that would be on top of this system. It's an additional cost.
No, it's in lieu of.
It's in lieu of.
Correct.
Right, it's in lieu of. I mean, it's not, this
This figure doesn't.
isn't a net figure.
No.
This isn't 21 million to the good over what would happen if we were doing
No,
this
I
manually.
said that, it's not,
Yeah.
it's not a
Well,
comparison to...
What I would like to see, and this is a subject for another day or offline, is a calculation, an ROI calculation of the two scenarios. One that has fixed cost up front, and they start with the central monitoring system, and one that has no central monitoring system that has a ramp up of direct costs the hires that you have in this in slide 15. Anyway,
I mean, you know, it's a wash. I mean, basically, this is gonna cost the same as a manual system. That's the way it looks to me. Bottom line, when all is said and done, this is gonna cost pretty much the same as a manual system. So why wouldn't you do it? You know, if it's all the same, about the same, you know, over the course of 10 years, it's gonna be about the same. So why wouldn't you do it? I mean, that's what it boils down to. I mean, we're gonna be talking, if you do an ROI and net it off, you're gonna talk $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. You're talking rounding errors, you know, and it's gonna cost the same. So why wouldn't you do it?
well, why would you? Here's another question I have, which I've asked before. Why would you do it right now with 1250 machines? Why wouldn't we do it 2 years from now with 10,000 machines or 8,000 machines? A lot of the benefit that is easy to picture is the more machines you have. But it appears to me, especially based on the next slide, that there's this assumption that we ought to have this system as soon as 3 months from now.
So from my perspective, I would argue that implementing technology is difficult, as we have found out with the licensing management system. And I think that getting started is going to benefit us in terms of experience and getting the glitches out of the way if we do this with Penn, both in terms of the experience of our own staff and also standing up the operation, which is going to be dependent upon this application. Again, we're looking, how are we going to operationalize? So I think doing it early and having that time is going to make us better when it comes time to put these systems online with the commercials. In addition to that, I would say that retrofitting and putting these systems, while it's possible to put these systems in on an operating game floor, I think there's a risk of some kind of problems that, you know, the operator may have, and we don't want to be the cause of those problems. So I think one of the reasons for doing it now is to get out in front of it and also to use it as we decide how we're going to regulate.
Can I ask a question?
Talk to that a little bit,
Yep.
because it is a little bit intrusive, and we've gone over this, and Matt can talk to the two different scenarios of how you do it while the gaming floor is operational. Just as a high level, one is actually shutting down sections of the gaming floor to test it and bring it online and make sure that everything's interoperable. And the other piece is kind of doing a soft jump and working with it without knowing if everything's working perfectly at the beginning. So Matt can kind of talk a little bit more to that.
Yeah, did you have a question?
No, that was it. You know, what would it take in terms of retrofitting? Help me understand how that is intrusive or doable. How many other jurisdictions have done it with existing machines or upfront, in your experience?
In my experience, the jurisdictions that have these systems in place have introduced them upon the start of their gaming program, because it does become intrusive, and in cases such as New Jersey and Nevada, cost prohibitive to put these systems in later. In the case of Penn National, if they're going in today and putting in the wiring in their floor for this system, that takes a portion of it out. But typically the process that we would go through when we put a system in, the system would be in place, the facility would be going through their process of getting ready for opening, installing slot machines and all of that. And the regulator takes that period of time before the facility is open to do coin tests and controlled testing where you can make sure that what's happening at the gaming device is reported appropriately both to the regulator system and to the casino management system, and then it gives you the opportunity to compare. You don't really have the ability to do that in an existing facility unless you shut down portions of the floor and segregate those machines in order to do that type of testing. Definitely possible to do that, but you're impacting the operation of the facility at that point, obviously. And then, again, if you're introducing this system after the fact, you would have some impact on each gaming machine through the process of the system initially making sure that the software on the terminal is what we have defined on the machine. Typically, when you're installing the machine in the floor, the system has a record of what that machine is. When they communicate for the first time, the machine goes through a configuration that can take a few minutes to do. Doesn't sound like a big impact, but when you have to bring down sections of the floor in order for that configuration process to happen, because you never do it to one machine while the machines on either side of it are playable, you section off portions of the floor to get all of those machines done at the same time before they're operational again. So that's really the two impacts, the two areas where it could impact the operation of a facility the most, if you were to introduce the system later.
Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it, to have the system, the entire system tested as a unit before you turn the key on the door, if you can possibly do it. And if the cost isn't prohibitive.
Plus, I think, if you're talking 5 or 10 years, I think it'd be well worth thinking about, but, you know, ramping up a manual system and then ramping it down again, while you're ramping up your electronic system for the gain of whatever it is, you know, a couple $1 million. I don't know if that'd be worth it. That'd be pretty inefficient, I think.
One of the things that we've heard from the operators, and one of the things that, if I recall correctly, has been a recurrent chord in the music is that there are frequently discrepancies between the operator's tally and this system's, a CMS's tally, and they often are attributable to a reporting time being out of sync, and therefore not a real discrepancy, but require a great deal of time on both the operator's side and the commission side to reconcile the differences. I think I have that criticism right.
That was well done.
Is there a, what do you have to say about that?
So that's true, and I'll let GTEC answer this, but it's based on the jurisdiction. So if we say we're not going to look at variance of X amount because we know that it's going to, our machine may ping it, the EGD at this time, and the operating system may ping it at another time, and it's off by a few minutes, and those are going to wash out the next day. We don't need to investigate those. We don't need to send those over as an error, because we're the ones that will be comparing it after the fact. We're the ones that will be getting their reads, our reads, and comparing them and saying, go look into these ones to our team. So we can minimize that by setting our standards at a higher threshold for when you investigate that. So we could set it at $500 per machine. We could set it at $100 per machine. And you'll see that most of them are, I've actually seen these reports, they're $5 off, they're $6 off, some are pennies off because it was in play when the operator pinged it and it wasn't able to respond, or we just didn't have a good connection to it.
And most of those variances correct themselves within 24 hours because of the differences. They just, the difference washes.
But how do you, if you're doing taxes on a daily basis, how do you $5, $6 off per machine, but that if you have 3,000 machines, then you begin to talk about not huge amounts of money, but real money. How do you factor that into the taxing?
So then the next day that would wash out. So you'd see the up versus the down. So if you went high the first day, you'd see your tax report being different from the operator's lower the next day.
And Massachusetts would make the CMS the system of record. Therefore, any variances would have to be explained back from the House system. I think was our
All right,
conversation.
let me just,
Well,
I'm slow on the uptake here, but suppose we, just hypothetically, we pinged at 1 a.m. and the operator pinged at 2 a.m. Why wouldn't it continuously be out of sync, either up or down?
The only reason they wouldn't, the reason that they, I don't know how to explain this, you've got an actual, the way takes a snapshot is you've got the meter read at that point,
Yeah,
we got the meter read at the point the next day. So if we took it at an earlier point, our starting base is earlier, and then you're still reconciling to the next point. They read at a later point, their starting base the next day will be the same point. So while we were higher the first day, we'll be lower the second day, and those numbers will wash out. Is that correct, Matt, the way I'm explaining it?
That's correct in certain circumstances. I think the situation that you're asking about is a little bit different. And the situation itself can be solved by jurisdictional rules. What happens, the situation that you're explaining, in a given jurisdiction, there is a definition of a business day, and it's usually never midnight to midnight. Because in an environment where a casino is running 24 hours, the end of day is typically in the earlier hours in the morning, because the casino is still somewhat populated at midnight. So maybe the business day is at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. when it's not as populated. In our experience, a regulator sets their business day at whatever
right.
appropriate time they believe the business day should be set at, and allows the operators to manage their casino management systems however they will. And those business days in the casino operator systems are not always the same 24-hour
Right.
period.
Right.
So it's not necessarily a discrepancy in actual dollars, it's a
Right.
reporting discrepancy.
Right.
And if those business days are off, if the Massachusetts business day ends at 1 a.m.,
Right.
then they will tax a facility from 1 a.m. to 1 a.m. If the facility's business day ends at 2 a.m., then their reported tax will be 2 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Right.
So in actuality, they'll never sync up because of that 1 hour discrepancy each day.
Yeah. Right.
Certainly, reports can be generated looking at the activity for any given set of hours.
Right.
But it really depends on the definition of a business day and if that's enforced the same in the regulator system and in all of the operator systems. But the facilities are not getting taxed any more or any less. They're just getting taxed at a different cycle than the reports that they generate, the reports that they're looking at from their systems.
And so even if it doesn't wash out, which under that scenario, it's unlikely that it would wash out, it won't aggregate.
Correct.
You'll always be getting, a constant tax on a slightly different day.
A different time frame, yes.
Right.
Why wouldn't you just mandate that everybody pings at the same time? Everybody,
The way we've looked at it, every other operator, and every other regulator has made it that you have to report on our time period.
right, that's,
So you'll
that
be
solves
every
that.
time we take it at the same
I hear
time we're
you.
taking it.
So
So
you
I'm
might,
sorry, I didn't understand that question.
yeah,
'cause
you
I
might be off by
contemplated that.
seconds, but
Right.
it's easy to solve that problem.
Right.
Sorry, was somebody else? You converted the CMS cost to monthly. Do we pay monthly? Or do we pay the upfront
We're
up?
paying it monthly,
We'd be paying it monthly.
yes.
So there's no exaggerated cash flow hit to the operators, the way this deal is structured.
There'd only be one. It'd be the refresh at the 5-year period. It'd be a $3 million refresh.
Okay.
And it's the same monthly cost regardless of the number of machines, or is there a variable cost?
There's a small uptake when each facility comes on, but GTEC's price has been very low. I think it's $44 per additional 100 or something. I don't want to, it's very low compared to anything else we saw. There's additional number of machines that come on. So it's a minimal uptake. The majority is the $225,000 per month for the central system and the network operations center.
Are we paying, we must be paying a carrying cost by making this a monthly payment rather than paying it up front. What would be the difference if we did pay it up front?
I haven't even looked at that.
I couldn't tell you, we didn't actually do that calculation because we submitted the costing as was requested in the RFR.
Okay.
We didn't look at it differently.
It seems to me if we were to go down this road, that once we make our decision, we would then turn to the people who are actually paying the freight and saying, how would you rather do this? I mean, maybe from their standpoint, they'd rather spend less money and pay it up front and not pay a carrying cost over 10 years.
I would imagine the contrary, but we should ask them
Yeah.
for that same reason.
It's their money, but,
Well, I would rather pay later.
well, maybe they
When
would.
given the choice, I would rather pay later.
Well, maybe they would, but I just think it'd be worth asking them.
Yeah.
Is that the end of the presentation?
One last slide that shows the implementation time.
Can I just go, just before we leave money? When we looked at this last time, we had an FY15 budget item of 1.7 million.
Correct.
So if we went down that path, this path, we would,
Be under that number, we'd be closer to 1.25 or 1.3,
oh,
because it's only 6 months.
all right, got it. Yeah, okay, got it. So it's, implementation of this is within our
Within our budget.
Right, okay, got it, thanks.
The last piece, and I'll let John handle this slide, is the implementation timeframe. And one of the things we want to point to is that we would anticipate a contract signing based on before coming to this meeting. An assumption that we would get a decision today of January 9th. Anything beyond that kind of pushes hard on GTEC and our staff to commit the time. And one thing I have committed to GTEC is if we went down this option, we would have a team that would be available to them as much time as they need to make sure this was not delayed. And I know that that is a difficult thing, but we don't want to be the reason that something bad happens in one of our operators' facilities. We want to make sure that we get whatever support we need, whatever decision-making we need to our contractor to make sure that they can implement the system as needed. And we would start off with a rather simple, just giving us the technical aspects of what's running on the floor and getting us our meter reads, and then work to figure out what we need exactly on the other level of reporting that we figure out as we work out on the gaming floor.
Do we have the team, the resources to create that team? Or would we have to hire?
No, we have the resources right now, so it'd be a combination of, on the financial side, being me and Maria, because Maria's doing a lot of the revenue. We're hiring for a revenue accountant right now that could do a lot of the work that Maria's been doing on a day-to-day basis. On the financial team, John has hired Suresh, and John would be dedicating some of his time to it as well.
I think-
Vanessa is well versed in the IEB financial investigation side. She's made a very strong commitment, and Bruce is currently hiring a supervisor of gaming agents, so looking for one. Bruce is obviously making a very time-dedicated resource to this. So it'd be almost the same procurement team that would be working on this.
Yeah, I would involve both Dan McDonald, Manager of Infrastructure, and Suresh in this effort.
Okay.
So John, you want to walk through the timeline?
Well, I think it's a tight timeline. I'm going to defer to Matt for any of the detail, but when we talked about what it would take to get this done, the original proposal had them starting up concurrent with the facility start, and we asked them to take another look to see if they could move some things back so that we could be ready to start earlier than the opening date. I think that gives us some flexibility and builds in a little bit of time. But there's a lot of effort, both from standing up the infrastructure in the facilities. I have to tell you, I was very surprised at all the work that's been done since the last time I was in Plainridge. It's really amazing. So that infrastructure, getting the hardware in place, starting up the software, connecting all the machines, there's a lot of work that has to be done in a very short period of time. And But I'm confident that GTEC can handle that with the team that they brought to the table and the fact that they've done it in any number of jurisdictions before.
What is this iterative software development piece from 1.5 to 3.20? And what software are we developing? I thought I'm always
So we
little
would take
worried
our,
about it.
we would take our baseline system, and we would love to take a system off the shelf and install it in a jurisdiction without any software changes. That would be the ideal world for us. But the fact of the matter is that there are some specific nuances to each jurisdiction. And that iterative software development is making any changes to our baseline system that would be necessary for the initial operation state in Massachusetts. And that includes things as simple as changing our report headers to Massachusetts Gaming Commission, as an example. So it includes simple things like that. It includes any more substantial changes that, as we sit down with the team that Derek and John are talking about, we determine collectively that need to be done in order for the system to operate the way you expect it to operate on the day we go live.
So does that also have to do with the machines that the operator is using? Do software changes have to be made to accommodate the machines?
No, again, the machines, as long as they use one of the industry standard
Okay.
protocols, the SAS protocol, the G2S protocol, there's no additional integration that would need to happen.
So the extent then of the iterative software development lies within our control. We could decide that all you have to do is change the headers.
Yes, if all we have to do is change the
Theoretically,
headers on
right.
reports in theory.
Then you're ready to go tomorrow.
Not
Thursday.
quite tomorrow, there's
Yeah,
still a,
right.
still a whole testing process that.
Ja-
that we need to
January
go through.
10,
Right.
according to this
I'm
chart.
being facetious, but I guess I've made the point. I understand. That piece is within our control, depending on
Yes.
how much we want
You know,
to customize this thing.
apropos of Enrique's point, and given how easy things like this can go wrong, it might be desirable not to put in all the tweaks we want in the system when we started in Plainridge, and let the installation be as easy as possible.
Right.
And worry about the tweaks when we install it at the macro level, you know, with the big boys.
That was a recommendation of GTEC,
Oh, okay.
and we are going to follow their advice.
Okay.
We are going to minimally adjust.
Yeah. That makes
But
great,
there are things
pretty
we
good
have to
sense.
accommodate for daily billing, those
Right.
types of things.
Right.
Because this system can do monthly, daily,
Yeah.
annual, so those are the types of things that we'd have to sit down and figure out what we have to do by statute.
I think
Right.
premium on simplicity would be.
Yes.
Right, absolutely.
So in addition to that software development, we also go through a quality assurance cycle on any changes that we do make. And that's an iterative process that goes along with the software development
Right.
timeline. Once all the development is complete, then we'll do a complete system test where we regression test everything from end to end. And at the same time that's going on, we'll be installing infrastructure and system hardware and stuff like that in the data centers.
Okay.
We then go through a CAT, customer acceptance testing process, which is you testing the system or the staff testing the system to make sure it meets the needs that they have and the expectations that we've documented. And then at that point in time, the system is ready for connectivity to a venue. And the equipment that resides in the venue would be installed when the venue is ready. It would be installed, in this case, typically in the month of May or the beginning of June, according to this timeline. The benefit here is we've worked with Penn National in the past in Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Kansas, so we've gone through this process with them a few times now, and I think we understand. As a result, we understand them and what their expectations are. They understand our system and what our expectations are from an equipment and housing that equipment standpoint, and don't anticipate any real issues there.
Anybody else? Are you concluded?
Yeah, so I just want to take the time to thank the team again. I want to thank Bruce, John, Vanessa, Kathy Bach, Wayne and Agnes. And I really want to thank GTEC for coming forward and helping us explain this. And I think John might have something he'd like to conclude, maybe GTEC would like to conclude, and then we'll turn it over for questions.
So I'm going to throw out my remarks because I think we've really done a good job of covering the work that was done over the last year. I want to thank Derek for his leadership. I want to thank the other members of the team for the good humor that we've had, Agnes, you especially. I want to thank GTEC and the other 4 vendors who presented because I think, or responded because it gave us a broad range of things to take a look at. From the position of CIO, you pay me to be your technology professional. We, as a group, collectively, both the commission and the directors, have a unique opportunity, greenfield opportunity, to start up a government agency and to make decisions based on efficiencies, productivity, workflow, and to create something that really is efficient and secure and productive. And I hope that you consider the use of technology like this as foundational to the operations of the commission going forward, because I think the technology and the benefits that it'll provide to make staff work smarter and in different ways than the legacy environments will really will help us lead. And I think Massachusetts takes a lot of pride in being innovative. We've been innovative with our approach to responsible gaming. I hope you are open-minded to being innovative in our approach to digital regulation of the industry here in Massachusetts. Thank you.
And I'd just like to close by again saying thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present today. On behalf of the company, we are excited about expanding our relationship with Massachusetts. We've been a partner with the Massachusetts Lottery for over 20 years. And we do business with a lot of other entities in Massachusetts, large and small businesses, and have a number of employees living in the state of Massachusetts as well, being located just down the road in Providence, Rhode Island. Massachusetts is extremely important to us for all of those reasons, and when we had the opportunity through the RFR process to participate, we jumped at the chance, and we're excited about this potential opportunity moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last thing I'd like to say. Thank you to the commission for pushing us so hard on this. It's about our 8th presentation on this. You really made us take a look at what this would do for Massachusetts, what it would mean if we went in another direction. So while it has been a lot of work, I want to thank you. It's been educational. It's been
Yes.
a good process, and I think that we know what's available out there and what the new trend is. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
your time.
And that helps me with, Derek giving me a quick segue, which is we are somewhat aware of another possible concept. We want to take a couple weeks, take a look at that, and then come back to the commission on your first meeting in January as well. But I'd just like to throw in my words of, I guess, sort of wisdom, but to me, this system does provide the deterrence and the integrity. And I think one of the most important things is that transparency that I think is so central to our mission that can help us as we move forward. So we look forward to coming back on the 8th for your decision.
Okay.
Let me just ask something about that, and I look forward to hearing from you again on the 8th, but what does that do to our timeline? We've only got a 5-day cushion at the end, right? But of course, if we don't make any extensive software changes, so it's still within our control.
It is, and I think by pushing GTEC to come back and say they could do it and essentially go live by May 30th, we have a built-in buffer.
I'm
to-
sorry, May 30th.
Yeah.
I misread that. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. Okay. May 30th is the target go-live date.
Yes, And it's tight, it is.
Oh, I understand
So
that. I understand
2
that.
weeks
Okay.
are not
I-
advantageous.
Okay.
But it just means that we'll have to put more time into it, and we do less
Right,
changes to the
right,
system. and-
right. Got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it is 12:30, just about 12:20.
Pretty good timing.
Yeah, I think we will want to stop and take a lunch break. I guess we are on our own, right?
Yeah.
So how long do we want? Take an hour?
An hour.
All right. We're going to adjourn for an hour. We will come back at 1:30 and pick up with the ombudsman report.